The way stress and trauma works is that when somebody goes through a very difficult experience, they're in it and then the experience gets put behind them and then they have to start the process of moving away from it and moving forward. You can do that when the experience that you've been through is behind you. What happens when the experience is not behind you, it's ongoing? So if I was in a car accident, God forbid, I can put the car accident behind me and start recovering. What if I'm still in the car that's driving off the edge of a cliff? Is my stress level supposed to go down? It can't, because the situation is ongoing. We are not recovering. We are just getting to some degree used to living in a situation where the stress levels, wherever we are, whether we are worried about war, worried about anti-Semitism, the stresses, the stimulants from the stresses are still there. So we are all in a very stressed space, and that puts pressure on the relationship.
And I think it's important to just appreciate that and accept that and understand that we're in an abnormal situation. It's not going to carry on forever. And don't look at it like it is. Don't be frustrated with your partner because they're connecting to this universal experience on some level that the whole world is going through. Certainly the Jewish people are going through, whether it's in America, in the UK, whether it's in Israel. Don't expect them to be able to put that aside and just fully be there for you in the moment. In the same way that you wouldn't want your partner to expect that of yourself. It's important to appreciate the reality that your partnership is in right now, and therefore evaluate the quality of the relationship and how to build that forward based on the reality of the stresses that are actually happening. We're not out of this yet. We're not back into normal.
Yes.
So I would say on this point, to not really judge yourself. You've got to give yourself a bit of slack. We're here right now. We're not in Israel right now. We've taken the family away. We've been away for a week. We're sitting in a European country with incredible views and sea and this, that, and the other, because we're accepting that we're in a stressful situation and that we want to find an environment where we're able to reset a little bit. Cracks appear when buildings move, when earthquakes happen. Cracks appear in the structure of the building. Cracks will appear in the nature of your relationship too.
And young couples, or even older couples, have cracks in their relationship. We all do. Young people, as they're building a relationship, part of what you do in a relationship is you realize that there are flaws in the relationship, and over time, in a normal situation, you can work on consolidating the cracks, making up for the flaws, learning how to be a better partner. It's not unnatural to have a crack in a relationship. It's not unnatural to have a flaw in your dynamic. When stress comes in and makes the flaw much more prevalent, makes us feel that those cracks are something we cannot go over, we have to remember it's not because our marriage is terrible. It's because the natural, normal dynamic of marriage, where there are flaws and imperfections that we have to learn to accept, have been really stressed by stress. They've been really widened by pressure. And therefore, when you suddenly look at your marriage and thinking I cannot deal with this because you are so moody, you can't deal with me because I'm so anxious. It's not that our marriage is bad. We always dealt with moodiness and anxiety, and that's fine. Of course, we're feeling much worse and it's much more stressed. But that's not your marriage that's at fault. That's the stress of war that's doing it to your marriage. And you've got to really keep that in mind as you're judging your relationship and yourselves and each other. War creates stress fractures.
And just as Alana mentioned, war creates stress fractures. It's very important to appreciate, therefore, that you need to evaluate the relationship in the context of where things really are. We've said this a few times, but you need to evaluate the relationship in the context of what it's really experiencing. And you can't look into your intuition and say, are we doing well? Are we not doing well? When your measurement is the way things were, because it's going to feel really different. So for example, I would say if a marriage and a family structure is basically functioning at a time like this, I think you're doing amazingly. I genuinely think people are doing amazingly. Whereas in normal life, you'd be like, this is it? This is what it's going to be like forever? No way, I don't want this. We got to work on this, we got to change it. I think right now, basic functionality is an incredible accomplishment. And people need to remember that. There's nothing wrong with the marriage, necessarily. What there is just a horrific external factor right now that's really shifting the seas.
Imagine if you're trying to keep a house clean and there's the normal mess and you're in a pattern of cleaning it up and it's messy, cleaning up and it's messy. What happens with war is, well, imagine that happening, but on top of that, there's a pipe that's sending mud into the house constantly. You're thinking, wow, I'm not keeping the house clean. It's getting dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. Like something's wrong. Well, no, nothing's wrong with the house and your efforts. What's wrong is that there is a pipe sending mud into the house. It's going to feel much dirtier, much quicker. It's going to feel like you cannot keep it clean. The outside factor is causing so much pressure, and I see so many young couples asking whether their marriage is a failure. And I would like them to know that their marriage is not a failure. Their marriage is whatever it was before. It was a work in progress that needed a lot of effort. It's now taking superhuman efforts to maintain status quo because someone's blowing mud in the house. Of course it feels dirty. You've got to recognize that, isolate that, and know as a team we might not be able to keep it as clean as usual. We're going to do our best to keep it manageable, but as long as that's been blown in, that's not our faults.